Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power. Hello and welcome today to Your Ultimate Life, the podcast dedicated to just one thing, and that is helping people claim their power, that hackneyed phrase, but claim who they really are, understand that they're not limited, and create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that they love living every day and make money and add good to the world and all that good stuff. I love having great people, and I have another one today. Tina Greenbaum, who is magic in many ways. Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I just kind of lost my voice for a second, so I might cough for a minute, but...
Is it, you need to go find it?
It's here. Thank you.
All right. You need some water or something? All right, great. So thank you for being with me today. The first question I want to ask is, and I don't want you to be shy or bashful at all, and I'm not suggesting you are, but sometimes this question makes people think, at least. I'd like you to share with us, how does Tina add good to the world?
Well, I just got an array that came through of ways that I do my best to give the best that I have to the world. Somebody asked me a long time ago in a training that I was in, how old were you when you started helping people? And we were a group of helpers, and everybody went like this, from the time that we were very small. So it's just been a natural evolution of that. I had really good parents who were great neighbors and good people, and I was raised with good values. And so this last iteration of where I am, or the current iteration, is really kind of calling myself a catalyst for peace.
I love that, a catalyst for peace. So I know there's lots of chapters to this, and that's wonderful. And I don't know how many of them we'll get to explore today, but let's explore this messenger or vessel or purveyor of peace. Where did that name come from, and what does that actually look like in practice? Like, what do you do?
Well, I come from a household where my mother was a great peacemaker. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't stand or tolerate a lot of I have a brother and a sister, so there were three of us, and a pretty difficult dad. And she couldn't stand when there was disharmony in the household, when people weren't talking to each other. My father could go for days without talking to anybody. And she would make us sit down for family meetings. And I actually told this story at their funeral, because they were in a car accident together when I was 42 years old. So I had not enough years with them, but my mother used to sit us down, and my father, again, would go silent for days. And she would say to him, he'd have his newspaper in front of him, and she'd say, Mitch, put the paper down, talk to your daughter, talk to your son, talk. So I learned from an early age how to have difficult conversations. And I think that that's probably the genesis of this, because I learned that after we had those difficult conversations and we could get through what I was thinking, what you were thinking, and I felt better. And there was peace in the household. And so that was a great model for me. And that's the way I raised my family. I have three sons, and when things would get difficult, and still even now, that's what we do. So that's the genesis of it. And then I'm a psychotherapist by training. And I started working with women with eating disorders, and they would tell me all kinds of stories about their family and mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, but they weren't changing. And so I'm really a teacher at heart. I was a teacher first before I became a psychotherapist. And I said, well, you don't have the skills to do this. And so that's why I started kind of combining that coachy side of me. And it's always looking for solutions in how to solve problems. And I know, Kellen, that's kind of, your passion as well. And so it evolved, and I created a program and a book called Mastery Under Pressure. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, again, that same thing of how do I deal with difficult situations? How do I put myself in a situation where I'm resilient and I'm really, really strong to be able to handle life's ups and downs and all the challenges that we're given. And I recently started to work with a new person, and she said, the master under pressure is really great, and that covers a good part of you. She said, but I really see you dealing with conflict as kind of the central theme of what you do. And as I started to look back and what you're reminding me of, it's always been there. And as I've been sharing more and talking more and writing more and doing all the things that I need to do to get out there, it fits for me. It feels absolutely right. And at the highest level, with what's going on in this world, sometimes when I hear, this one hit, bomb this one, what do you expect is going to happen? They're going to bomb it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. Well, so you felt you had a good example. You felt this of both, of someone who didn't want to talk, didn't want to engage, and then someone else who was capable and insistent, powerful at modeling the kinds of things that do, have learned, and then have taken to a much higher level with your education and training and the work that you do. What happens? Like you talked about, eating disorders is one particular malady, but there's a zillion of them. And so they have a story about things and they talk about all that stuff out there. When people are able to have difficult conversations and just talk about what's there, whether it's with themselves or with someone else, what is it that changes?
That's such a great question, because it's really been the crux of every course that I've taken, everything. How do we do this? How do I actually help somebody change at a fundamental level so that they experience themselves differently?
And that's a good sense. Experience themselves differently, because, everybody has a set of lenses, and there's that phrase, we don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are. And often it's said like it's an indictment, and it's not. It's just a fact. And exactly. So seeing yourself fundamentally different is so powerful. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. And actually feeling different, seeing and feeling yourself. So let's just say I did a TEDx talk 2 years ago, and it was called Befriend Your Inner Enemy. And I talked about my process really as a clinician, how I got from traditional talk therapy. We could talk, but you weren't changing. Okay, so how do we do that? How do I help somebody get under the conscious mind? Because that's where the action is. And one of the great metaphors that I saw that Deepak Chopra did. Mm-hmm. Okay, so imagine that this thing is the separation between your conscious mind, which is actually quite finite. If we're looking at the square on the rectangle here, the conscious mind can only hold so much information. And so when it gets too full, it goes down into the subconscious and the unconscious mind. So imagine that this were magnetic filings that I had up here, and we think that we're going to move them here. No. This is what moves it underneath. So how do I get here? That's really kind of been the trick. Not such a trick. But now the neuroscience is kind of proving a lot of the things that the yogis have known for millions and millions, years and years and years. But it really is to get below the head. I always call it, when I hear somebody talk and sometimes they're talking, it's like, you're like a talking head. I'm not feeling you. And so it was getting into the feelings, getting into the body. There's a whole universe here that gives us a tremendous amount of information.
Well, you could argue that's the real universe. The head, the talking stuff, is the made up one that we invent to interface with everything. And we do it according to what we think and what we should and what we think others think and all this other crap. But the real universe is what you're talking about. And so it isn't like another one. It's the only one that you could argue that it's the only one that matters.
I believe so, because it drives the truck, it's the motor, it's everything, right? And the challenge is kind of from what you said is, how do I get from here to here? And this has really been the essence of my work, because it's not natural. The most natural thing to do is to react. Somebody hurts me, somebody attacks me, I attack them back. I feel badly, I'm scared, so I close down. These are the most natural things that we're doing, because the brain is designed from our primitive brain to protect ourselves. So
Right.
I love saying, I learned this a long time ago from one of my teachers, all behavior has a positive intent. So in other words, even these people that are out there killing each other and killing and doing awful, 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 awful things to their own psyche, it has some positive intent. So it's really kind of understanding your motives. Why am I doing this? What's really going on? What's causing this? Why do I want to fight back at that person? So understanding your own, I like to say, be curious. What we do is we put ourselves down so much. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I can't believe that I'm here. Oh, I can't believe that I made that. And we just fret about all these things. But if I could just how did I get to make that decision?
So let's go in there, because one of the things I love to do is allow messengers, people that have this positive stuff, understanding that the real game is in the subconscious, the lower than conscious stuff, realizing that it drives the bus, realizing that curiosity is a powerful tool to get in there. Let's do something. So what kind of process do you take somebody through? We can go back to the woman who's complaining about her eating, or some other thing that you think is more effective or
How about we
appropriate.
do it with you? How about we?
Okay, do it with me. Let's
Okay.
just do that. So let's do what you do to give me the glimpse and the access to that
Okay.
sacred and secret sometimes place.
Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about an issue or a pattern that you have that you still kind of bugs you. Oh
Hmm.
God, if I could only just get beyond this, that would be great.
Okay.
Got something?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is just close your eyes for a minute, or you don't have to close your eyes. And I want you to find that the sensation of that pattern in your body.
Okay, I found it.
Okay. And now what I want you to do is I want you to just kind of stay with it. I just want you to notice it. I'm not asking you to change it, breathe it away, do anything else. Just notice it. And what do you notice?
My first instinct was to start talking to it,
Mm-hmm.
start having a conversation with it, and sort of exploring it. I moved out of the present place, and eyes closed I find is effective, so I'm doing it. It sort of moves me. It's in my upper stomach. It feels like it's right where the esophagus enters the stomach, and that's maybe because it creates some kind of acid or whatever. I don't know. But there's a thing, and I was just thinking about it this morning. And as you know, I have a big long morning routine, and that was sort of the topic, one of the principal topics of those creation processes. So what I noticed is I started talking to it.
Uh-huh. Okay. So now I want you to just stay with it a little bit more. Okay.
Hmm.
Now what do you notice?
Um, it feels softer. It feels like it's feathered, like when you have. I do video editing, so you're thinking of a crossfade. It sort of gets feathered at the edges and thins out.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes less. Well, first of all, I have attention to it rather than it just being there somewhere in the background. And the second thing is I notice when I bring that attention to it, and I did talk, and then I just stopped talking and I just sat there, it feathers and it sort of becomes more thin.
Okay. Okay. So we could go on with this.
Hmm.
And I would venture to say that every time I ask you to just kind of notice a little bit more, it might shift, it might give you images, it might give you answers. You could ask it questions,
Hmm.
it could change colors. It's access. It's access to a place. And again, if from my background, in terms of some of the theory bases that I use, in terms of it's in the stomach, I'm wondering, my question would be, would it have something to do with something to do with power or lack thereof, or something that has some kind of charge to it.
It certainly has a charge. It's a characteristic that came from decades long of dealing with, struggling with, and then eventually learning to overcome or manage. And I don't know if it ever goes away, but the feeling of not good enough that was instilled in me with a bunch of crap that happened for my whole upbringing till I left home at 17. And it left me sort of feeling like I'd be discovered. And the consequence, the thing I was actually dealing with, is allowing unimportant things to keep me from doing what I want to do, either a little bit or a lot, distractions or whatever it is. And then the question I always ask myself is, why? I don't even want to do that other thing. Why would that get in the way? And what I come back to when I do talk to myself and think about it is that, and I'm long past yelling and being dramatic with myself about it, but I come back to delay. There's an effort to delay that sums, I'm making part of this up, but it seems like it's based on fear of getting it done, because even if I do it, maybe it won't be all that I wanted it to be. So maybe it won't work. Maybe it won't whatever. And if I don't finish it, I don't have to get to that moment of truth of it sucks anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And it doesn't suck and all the rest of it. But that, that's sort of the drama thread that goes through my mind.
Wonderful. So from that little just observation of just checking in with the sensation, see, it's not just the thought.
No, there was no thinking involved. There was earlier today, but when I just sat here with it, I thought about it. When you asked me to describe it, it takes all these words to get to something that I know in a moment.
Yes.
An experience as a sort of collected feeling in just a moment.
Yes, that's the point. That's the point. And when people always say to me something like, well, this doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't make logical sense, but it makes emotional sense. And so
the feeling and its meaning and interpretation are clear, and I could second guess myself and make up a bunch of other crap. But the thing that occurs right away is this is just another delay thing, and what you distract with. It's like when I used to be a drug addict. People used to ask when you go into rehab stuff, what's your drug of choice? My answer to start with was cocaine, because that was the heavy one. But my answer eventually became, it doesn't really matter. It's whatever's handy, because I don't want to feel. So yes. Whatever it is, I just don't want to be, I remember saying, I just want to be unconscious. Yeah. And whether I was awake or not didn't have anything to do with being conscious. So I get it. And it is clearly tied to this sort of leftover programming, and it doesn't happen very much, but I was thinking about it this morning.
Okay, so again, the shortcut, it's a shortcut. Mm-hmm. As soon as you have that, notice that you have this delay, or you have that feeling, now you have a conversation that's very quick. Mm-hmm. And so again, when I take this stuff to conflict resolution, because of how could we use this?
Yeah.
This information, right? So now let's say I'm sitting in front of you and you're kind of saying, Tina, you're the one that did this and you're the one that did that. And I'm starting to feel, I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling when you're talking to me, and I can feel myself close up and I can feel myself wanting to fight back. But I know enough about me. When I get that feeling, I don't like to be controlled. That's my thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And as soon as I feel like that feeling, I know that somebody's trying to control me. Number one. And number two, okay, now I know what I'm feeling and thinking. Now I have to use, again, my skill, because these things have to be learned and taught. How do I talk to that person so that I'm not attacking them back and they're not going to just come at me again? Okay, so conflict needs fuel.
Right.
Say this, I did it. You add a little oxygen, I'll add okay. So I want to get out of that whole diatribe there. And I'm just going to sit for a minute and I'm going to kind of pay attention to how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Count, when you talk to me like that, this is what's going on for me. Can you fight with me about that? Can you fight?
No. I mean, if somebody that's bound and determined to escalate could say, you always retreat to this crap, blah, blah, blah. But if they're determined to fight with you, but not really.
Yeah. Okay. So can we really talk about what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that.
So again, it's taking the access. I'm working a lot with corporations in terms of how do you take this into a bigger arena? Well, everybody has to take responsibility for their own behavior first. If we come back again to that, I create my own reality. So if I'm sitting in an organization, I'm sitting in a place where I'm getting attacked and it's chaotic and toxic. How did I create that for me? Number one. Okay. And then how do I use my skills to be able to maneuver my way out and make choices for myself and choose different options? And so it just opens up doors that we're not stuck in a tiny little box. I'm always this way. I was born this way, or, this is just who I am. No, you may have character traits that you will. I mean, you're very technical. I'm not. I will never be as technical as you. It's not the way that my brain is designed, but it's not who I am as a person. It's a trait. It's a character trait. I can change who I am. And I like to think about transformational work. People talk about, I'm afraid to change. I'm afraid to look. We already know this stuff. You already know that issue about yourself. If I say to you, pay attention to it, there it is. There it is, right?
Yes.
So transformation, I believe, is coming home to the self. Who am I really?
I love that, because when I was just writing a bio the next week, which will be long in the past when this is broadcast, but next week I'm going to Phoenix to speak at a conference, the IANDS, International Association of Near-Death Studies International Annual Conference, because I died 6 years ago. And in that bio, I was just talking about that fact that we create ourselves and that we know this stuff and that this is, part of our birthright and who we are and all the rest of it. So, yeah, I love it.
Okay. And at the same time, it's not a natural sport. What you and I are talking about, it's not natural. How many years have you put into really kind of finding yourself again? And
I've been working on this for 17 years, since I had a dramatic turnaround of my life in 2007. I remember the day, I remember the event, and it was pretty dramatic. But it didn't do anything except make things really clear that there was a different way. And it's taken 17 years of work to get where I am today. And I imagine there'll be another umpteen till I croak, because this is a mountain without a top. So.
And that's what I want to impress upon people. This work is a lifetime's worth of work. And I like to call this work, I call it the 3 I's. So first is insight, right? So again, when I was working with those young women and they could identify a lot of the issues as to why they were where they were, but they didn't have any solutions. So it's the insight. Just like you said, it became clear to me that there's got to be another way, but I don't know the other way yet. Right? So then the next part is actually the skill building, where we have to implement new skills. So if I'm used to saying to myself, God, that was so stupid, now I'm going to pay attention to how I'm talking to myself, because that thought takes me to a bad place. It doesn't help me. It starts to unravel and makes me feel worse. So I like to call the thinking productive thinking. Do my thoughts produce something useful for me? So if I call myself stupid, is that a productive? Where does that take me? Okay. And then how can I tweak that thought? Maybe that was a decision I'm not really happy with. And I was thinking XYZ when I made that decision, but I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. I work with two things, two kind of variables. One is I'm not stupid, even though I may do stupid things. And 2 is I'm a good person, even though I might hurt somebody's feelings. I don't ever do it intentionally. So I take those 2 variables out when I'm trying to figure out, how did I get here? How did this happen to me?
So those are really good. I really want to appreciate you for taking us through that kind of learning. I want to do several other things. So you said mastery under pressure. You've talked earlier, maybe before we talked or here about mediation. You've taught me as an example for those to identify feelings and to sit with them and have dialogue with them and take the drama out of it and have some fundamental assumptions that you're not stupid and you're not being mean on purpose or grumpy or hurtful or anything else. You might be doing something that you think is in self-protection that damages someone else or whatever. There's lots to talk about that. And those are really powerful truths. And I resonate completely with all of them as I think about my own journey in the last X years. What are you, messengers? I love hearing people with a message, and you have one that's backed by decades of study, experience, personal development, and work, starting with the example in your childhood. If you were to say, like, okay, there's a stadium, and it's got 100,000 people in it, and the flag above the stadium isn't Taylor Swift, it's Tina Greenbaum. So the Tina Greenbaum flag is above that stadium, and 100,000 people came because they saw your name. Okay. And you have, they're all there paying rapt attention, and you get a microphone and you have 5 minutes. What is the message that is, and I realize it all requires implementation, but what's the message?
The message is, you can do this. You can have a life that is meaningful, that is passionate, that is rich, and you're going to have to work for it.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Because when you said the implementation, nobody ever fell up a mountain. And we talk about personal development as a mountain without a top. And I don't know anybody that ever fell up the mountain. And so, yes, you can do it. And we live in a disease-ridden world. Not COVID. We live in a disease, and some of the diseases are entitlement and victim mentality and addiction to mediocrity and, that sort of thing, which belies all the work that it takes.
Right. Yes.
So I love it. You can do this. It takes work. What else? Is there any other part to that?
Yeah, the part is that you can find solutions to things that you thought were insolvable. That you need to have skill. I come back, I'm a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I like to say that good mental health is not a natural sport, it's a learned sport.
And I love that. Just because the environment around it sure doesn't contribute in a lot of ways to having it. So you have to learn.
And that there is a path. And it's not the natural path. What's natural is exactly what we are doing. We are operating out of fear, and we are operating out of attacking people back because we're scared. We have to learn how to manage this. We have to work at a higher level of functioning.
One of the things that I love to explore with people like you that have is, okay, yes, you can do it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. 2, it takes work. And you talked about developing skills. One of the things I want to address directly, and maybe because it played such a role in my life, is our need to be vulnerable and go get help. And stop
Absolutely.
pretending and trying. The last thing. All right, well then wax poetic on it. Let's hear
it. Just like I said, we need teachers. This is not natural. Where did you learn how to do math? Where did you learn you went to school. You have to get somebody that you can trust, that you can allow yourself to be who you are at this moment in time. We have terrible regrets and how is the future going to play? Where are you at this moment? Because this is where we can start. This is the only thing we have any control over. The other important factor when we talk about control, because everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to, it's the most natural thing in the universe is we want to be heard. We want somebody to hear our voice. Well, we have to be able to speak it. We have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. So again, control is a very, very big issue in people's lives. In a lot of the work that I've done and work, how do I gain control without barreling everybody else over?
There's this example I saw. I was in Costco one day with my wife, and I don't know what the deal was, but there was a guy in front of 1 or 2 people in front of us And he was just furious and ripping the clerk, for whatever it was. Obviously, nothing that mattered to the level of the volume and the violence. And it wasn't physical violence, but emotional violence. And I finally went up there. I don't even finally, a couple sentences in, I went up there and did something because nobody else was going to. I wasn't going to watch that. But when Joy and I talked about it later, I decided what you just said. I think people feel so powerless. And when they have an opportunity to exercise control, even if it's yelling at the customer service person, they do it. And
Yes.
That is such a not true, because we actually create our lives. But we have this sense of powerlessness. So I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah. So this is the thing. When I get, as soon as I start to feel, kind of challenged in some way, shape, form, or another, the very first thing that I say to myself, what's in my control, what's out of my control. Okay. And stress is the perceived amount of control that we think we have or we don't have.
I love that definition. Listeners, I want you to take that and write it down. The amount of stress you feel is the amount of control you think you have. It's got nothing to do with the control you do have, but it's what you think. Keep going.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, that you want to de-escalate somebody, you have the skill and the power to do that and the willingness to do that. Right? So you chose, it was a choice, you chose. And I've been on a subway in New York City where this woman was beating somebody up and everybody was sitting and watching. And I got in there and, and then the woman, and I kept telling to the woman, get off the train. The woman she was getting beat up. And I said to her, get off the train, get off the train. And this woman said, the woman that was hitting her said, she said, if you don't move away, I'm going to go after you. Thank God the woman got off the train. Okay. But I couldn't sit and watch. Right? And
I love that you
nobody,
did that.
and even if it was over, nobody said a word. The entire train, nobody said a word.
Well, there's two things left that I want to do. First of all, I want to find out final words, final thoughts that you have to leave us hopeful, knowing that we can do it. We need to get help, and it takes work. What else? Final summation of...
Final thought is, if everybody were to take this message, what kind of world do you think we could have?
Amazing, outstanding. We wouldn't recognize it, and it would be fun to get up every day, and nobody would be afraid of anything because they realize that people are going to act within the bounds of sensibility, even when tough things happen.
That's it.
There's no question what would happen. And it's possible. I live in the same universe you do, and we think, it's a bunch of crap. It's actually possible. All right, the last thing I want you to tell us is, how do we find you? I want you to tell us the name of your book again. Where do we find you? Where do we get more Tina?
Okay, so it's pretty easy. I'm all over the place. Tina Greenbaum, the book, you can get at Amazon. It's called Mastery Under Pressure. Everything is Mastery Under Pressure. I have a website. I have my TEDx talk. Again, just put my name into YouTube and you can find the talk. You can email me at tina@masteryunderpressure. What else? I have a quiz. Just look up my name, honestly. And I have a podcast, which Kellen has been on, which was fabulous. It's called Under the Hood. You can check out all the other wonderful leaders that I've had. So I think that's pretty good. Tina Greenbaum at Gmail. No, Tina at Mastery Under Pressure.
Yeah, Tina at Mastery Under Pressure. All right, look, I want to thank you. This is really good. I want to thank you for using me as an example. That was a real thing I was thinking about this morning, so we didn't talk about it and didn't make it up. And it was really useful for me just to think about that again and to go through that process. And in saying that, I want to say to the listeners, look, you can listen to a show like this and say, oh, that's nice. Or you can listen to it a couple of times and identify your own things and get the book, watch the show, rewatch this, figure out how to allow this stuff that she spent decades both learning, teaching, creating, and serving with to do something positive in your life. Thank you, Tina, for your being here.
Thank you, Kellen. This was a pleasure.
So I can tell you these things are true. I don't have people on here that aren't going to tell you things that work and that are true and they work for you. And the premise of the show is that you have the ability through these tools and others that you find to take control in your own hands and create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellenFlukigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart.